This class is actually, there's tiers of Pianocraft, and there's basic tuning and basic repairs, basic regulation. I would say that this is definitely a step above that. This is kind of getting into that slightly more advanced work, and that is working on burning and traveling. I'm going to be demonstrating how to do each with a grand piano, specifically with this grand action. But just know that this is one of those skills that takes a little while to really finesse and hone in. Can you all hear me okay? Remove that. Is that any better? Just want to make sure.
That's good.
Okay. So this is definitely one of those skills that it takes a while to kind of really master. I've been doing it for a while, and I still come up to pianos where I'm like, ooh, do I need to shim that one? Do I need to burn that hammer? So just know that, cut yourself a little slack here, because this is definitely a service and a skill that is a notch above what we've kind of talked about a lot before. So there's a little bit of kind of preliminary work. First off, I will always do my burning and traveling with the stack removed from the key set. So just know that that's kind of a first step. So you're going to want to remove that stack from the keys before we get started. The next thing is there's a series of tools that you will need in order to do that, in order to do burning and traveling. One of them is kind of optional, and that is the hammer flange spacing tool. So this hammer flange spacing tool would be something that you would use and actually pivot the flanges. To be honest, you can get away without that, because just use your flathead screwdriver, but this is still kind of nice, but definitely a little bit more optional. Definitely going to want a screwdriver, whether it's flathead or Phillips, depending on the piano you're working on. You're going to want some kind of a dowel. And whether it's wood or whether it's metal, and that's going to go underneath these hammers, usually between the hammer shank and the hammer rest rail felt, so that you can move these hammers up and down. And then you're going to also want some kind of traveling tape or paper. So that's what I have right here. I actually went to a craft store and just kind of looked. I think I went to like Hobby Lobby and then Michael's, and they have this like little, I think it's a 1/8 inch, just like little paper, and you can buy this on Shaft, I believe. I haven't written down the part number, but usually it comes in a roll or a spool like this, and this is just nice to have. If you don't have this, you could also just use paper. You cut them into strips, roughly an 1/8 inch wide, big old strips, and you kind of wet it with your tongue and then apply it that way. But we'll go over that. And then finally, you need some kind of a heat source. I went and picked this up because I'm in Arizona right now. I didn't have my normal embossing gun. The embossing gun is a smaller, sleeker heat gun. This is a little bit more extreme. The reason I picked this one up is it does have a dial temp, which is kind of nice. And so this is something that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. It's like $30. But again, I would say for an easier use, I would stick with more of an embossing gun. And I think those are available on like Amazon. I think I picked a couple of them up for like 2 of them for like $20. And again, those are embossing heat guns. So we have a screwdriver. We have some kind of a dowel, tape, traveling tape or traveling paper, as well as a heat gun, and we can kind of get started. Now,
hey David, on the dowel, about how long do you normally use? About 10 inches?
Actually, it's quite a bit larger than that. I will go ahead and put it all the way. I will have it about 18 inches usually. I just kind of broke this one down. To be honest, I will pretty much always use something that's about that. So this is, so that's about it's about 16, 18 inches, because I want to feed it through basically almost be able to go through an entire section. So like the treble section and the high treble section, you got mid and treble and high treble. I want to be able to go through one of those sections, just kind of feed it through the bottom and just kind of go all the way and just see everything. This is one of those jobs that it's easier the more hammers you kind of are looking at when you're traveling up to see. Because if you're only doing 2 or 3, which I'm doing today, it's kind of hard because you're like, am my eyes playing tricks on me? What am I looking at?
Right. Plus, the extra length gives you more finger position.
Yep,
Yeah.
totally, exactly. So 16 to 18 inches. A lot of times I'll use those pedal rod dowels because a lot of times we'll cannibalize pianos that are destined for the trash, and those will get used there. So I think the best way to do this is this. And this is a really bad example of this. But to be honest, this is kind of what you're going to see. You're going to go into customers' houses. You're going to see their pianos are kind of like this. And so you can see they're just all mixed matched, going side to side. If I go up here, they're traveling upwards, but they're moving. They're moving not uniformly. We want these all to move up consistently, all the hammers to move up consistently. But what I'm seeing here is that they're kind of going like that. They're spreading out in different ways. And so we talked about this before, but really, what is the big deal about this? Maybe name a couple issues. So why would we need to fix this?
The string contact, hammer on string.
That's a really good one, Robert. You're right. You can see this one is massively angled, so it's going to hit one side of the string more than the other. That's
it's going to create abnormal wear of the hammer felt.
Abnormal wear on one side versus the other.
I've had hammers get stuck on each other too.
Yep, Justin, that's right. The hammers could touch each other, which that happens a lot. Yeah, and those are really the big ones, but also you're losing power. You're losing that kind of fluid motion, and we're complicating that. We want to take away friction. We want to take away any kind of anything that's going to hurt our momentum for having the piano play in a very fluid, easy way. So what we're going to do first, and this is what I will always do, is I'll look at an action like this and I'll be like, geez, this needs some preliminary, at least something. So before I go to actually work on traveling, I'm going to go through and do a little bit of burning. And what you're doing with burning is you're moving the hammer angle versus when you're traveling, you're adding the traveling tape to one side or the other of the flange so that they travel uniformly. So again, this is the angle from left to right of the hammer, and this is how it, and that's burning. And when we're traveling, we're adjusting how it travels upwards. So the way you test for this, and again, this is why you have the piano out, is you're going to go simply take your finger and just kind of lift the whip in like so. And so what we're going to see is you see the spacing. So I'm going to look at this one right here, and I can see that spacing, which way does it want to travel?
To your right, a little bit.
Yeah, you can see that. You can see that. Exactly. You can see that space is it's a fairly large space, but as I go up, it's taking up that space. It's moving inwards. And so I want to burn the hammer into the direction it's wanting to go. That's an easy way of thinking of it. And notice I'm wearing black, which again, that's something to do. Now, typically, if I'm actually doing this, I'm looking at it like this. I'm right here, I'm going through it, but I'll put something black behind the hammers so that I can easily see that space. So let's go ahead and try not to burn anything, catch the house on fire. So let's just start with this one hammer that's going, that's definitely needs to be burnt over. So I'm going to turn down this heat. And what you're going to do is apply that heat all the way up and down this shank. Going all the way up and down. I'm not stopping. And I'm putting a fair amount of pressure on that shank, moving it to the left or right, depending on how it's coming across. Wow, so that significantly moved it right there. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and lift it again. I can see that that space is pretty much staying the same right now. That's a good start. Because again, that's what we're trying to do with this round is just get it so that we're getting closer. So again, now that's a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and move this and space them a little bit because I think my spacing is a little off. And that's another thing to remember. A lot of times when you get to the pianos, you're like, wow, they're just, you know, maybe some of the spacing will be off and you'll need to do a little bit of preliminary spacing just to kind of see. So now I'm going to go to this side. So one of the things I'm seeing on this one, and I don't know if you all are seeing it too, is this one looks good, pretty good now. But this one wants to go to the opposite side. You see that? That distance is shrinking. So now what I want to do is move this one over a little bit.
So are you just bending the shank or are you twisting it?
I'm basically holding it at the head and I'm twisting it. And so those fibers, those wood fibers are heating up and allowing me to kind of push it over. And then as they cool down, they stay in that position. A lot of times I'll overdo it a little bit because it's going to want to go back a little bit to where it was.
What heat level do you have that on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I don't even know.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Basically at 6 inches, it's hot. Like I can barely hold it. But I don't know. It's basically warm. Again, I don't like this heat gun because you can't even see it. Maybe you can, but already that's charring it. And I'm like, no bueno. I hate that. So, yeah.
And that's why you like the embossing gun, because it doesn't produce quite as hot of a heat, correct?
Exactly. Exactly. So I kind of like the way this one is. I like the way the first one that we started, but this middle one is still not great. I still need to keep it moving it over. And again, this is where it comes in of just like practicing it. This is one of those things that we want to really focus on when we do the live in-person trainings is stuff like this, where you can have somebody showing you like, yeah, that's a bit too much, or you just ruined a shank and that's okay. That's a little bit better. Okay, so that would be like a first pass right there. I'll go through an entire section like I just did, made it so that they're spaced a little bit better. The hammers are squared off more correctly. They're not too far to the left, not too far to the right. And now is when I will go ahead and start doing the traveling. Before I do that, I will use my little tape here, and I'll, generally speaking, will cut and put maybe 3 or 4, I would say 6 to 8 inch sections and just tape it right here, just so that I have them on hand. I'm just taping them and I'm putting them on the workbench, draping them down right there. I just want to be able to have these on hand because I don't want to like mess around with these, right away. So as you can see, I've just gone ahead and put that dowel underneath those shanks, in between the shank, and the hammer rest rail felt, and I'm just going to go up with it. So it's really hard to do this on like a camera, so hold on, let me just kind of see. All right, so I'm seeing some things. So right away, I'm seeing that this hammer right here wants to go that way. Let's look at it again. Sorry for the beeping. I don't know what that is right now. Maybe it's carbon monoxide, and you're going to have to call the medics for me here. But I'm saying that this hammer, as it goes up, is getting closer to the neighboring one. It's wanting to travel that way. So in order to fix that, I'm going to go ahead and loosen the screw right here. And I'm going to put it underneath the direction it's wanting to go to make it go the opposite way. Does that make sense? So it's wanting to go this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the side where it's going in order to move it the opposite way. And so the where you put it is, I'm looking at it right here. I'm going to put a little strip right there. You see that? So from there, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down and see if that made it so that it's not, so that it's traveling just straight up and down and not wanting to veer off to the right or to the left. Okay. So that has definitely worked, but now I'm noticing that this middle one is wanting to go to the opposite side. So if it's wanting to go to this side,
Can you slide it closer to the camera so you can get
Sure.
a more close-up view as you look at the,
yeah.
lift it up and, yeah, so now you can see the middle one is wanting to go in.
Yep, it's wanting to go to this side. So the middle one, as it travels, is wanting to go over to this side, to the right or to the left, depending on where you're at. So what I'm going to do, again, is I'm going to loosen the middle one. And since it's wanting to go to this side, I'm going to go ahead and put a little shim, this little paper tape, on this side of it, because it's going to make it want to not go that way. It's evening it out, basically. So it's making it so it's not going to want to travel to that side. Again, you're putting it on the side that it wants to travel to make it so it doesn't need to go there. So here we go. Much better. And so that essentially would be like good enough for the first pass. In general, I'm going to do like 2 passes. I'm going to do my initial burning pass where I'm going to get everything close. Then I'm going to go through a traveling, get everything to where I'm not seeing any of the outliers. And then I'm going to go and do 1 more burning and 1 more travel. Questions about that? As I drink some water. Another thing to think of, this is another kind of easy way to think of this. If you look those hammers, what you want to see is a perfect parallel from here, the hammers, and the floor. So I can see right now, just right away, that this hammer looks it doesn't have a good parallel. It kind of looks like this, the top of that hammer. So it tells me that we're kind of angled incorrectly, whereas these are pretty much parallel to the ground. But this one, if I look at it, it kind of is at this angle. So the reality is, most likely, I need to move that over so that it has this perfect parallel from here to the ground. Does that
Could that ever be a voicing issue where maybe they didn't shave it evenly?
Yeah, it could be a hammer surfacing issue. You're right, Robert. In which case, you'd want to make sure that you're looking at it and you're observing, okay, no, this hammer hasn't been improperly shaped, because you are right. I've come across hammers where they're so mangled on the side. Yeah, I can see that. And it kind of looks like, I could see from your all's view, it kind of looks like maybe it has been misshaped, but actually it isn't that. It is that it's twisted. And so if I move it properly this way, it'll be right parallel with the ground. But you're right, Robert, you do want to check that as just a checking. Okay, are these hammers in good shape? Are they properly surface so that there's a nice flat surface, because that's what we want. We want this nice, perfectly symmetrical shape. We want this and this to be a good right angle. So again, we want the sides and the top right here to be a nice crisp 90 degrees. We want those to be squared off. So then furthermore, we also want this to be flat from the top and then parallel with the bottom. So that's one thing I can do right now, is simply, without even the other hammers, go through. It's hard to do it. You can really see it now. This needs to go like that. So I'm going to go ahead and heat it up again, because we're doing now our second pass of burning. That's looking a lot better. And again, you can kind of just visually see it before you even kind of move it up and down to be like, okay, yeah, these are looking in line. It's looking nice and squared, as well as there's a nice parallel between the top and the bottom. Okay, that's looking better. Yeah. So now I'm going to go ahead and just make sure it's spaced properly before I go through and just test it this way. Well, it looks pretty good. So now I'm like, okay, I'm liking that final pass of burning. I'm good there. So now I'm just going to go ahead and just go and try my traveling one more time. And it's one of those things, if it's that hard, if you're like, I don't know if it's that one, I don't know if it's that one, I think they're real pretty. If it's that hard, you're probably good enough. The reality is, if it's so hard that you can't even quite tell which one it is, they're all moving right, then you're usually pretty good. So because this is one of those jobs you can go crazy at. So one time I was like, I'm going to make it perfect. I spent hours and hours day one doing it, and then I just burnt out, and then I came back the next day and I'm like, good grief, what did I do? Because I looked and I was like, this is really bad. So like, I should have stopped hours ago, because I just got so, your eyes start to play tricks on you of which way do I move it? Which way do I move the flange? Where do I put the tape? Which is it actually traveling? And so the reality is, at some point you just got to be like, okay, this is a stopping point. Maybe come back the next day or a couple hours later and double check it. But again, this is one of those jobs where this is that really higher level work, and we're doing it in usually a concert regulation setting, or if there's a lot of major issues. Usually I don't have to do this unless they're wanting really a really good regulation, in which case, when I bring the action back to the shop to do my hammer surfacing, to do my lubricating of the parts, this is the time where I'll spend the time and do some quick burning and traveling. Any thoughts?
When you're in the shop doing it, you've got 3 there on the action model. How many do you typically do at a time so you can compare? Are you doing 5 or 6?
No, I'm doing kind of, how in a grand piano, usually you'll have about 25 bass, then you'll have about 35, and then it'll go to like 15 and then 15 or something along those lines. I'll do probably a whole gang of 15, and then I'll divide. So I'll do the high treble. I'm going off of a lot of grand pianos that have basically 4 sections. You have the bass, you have this mid, you have the treble, and a high treble. So usually the high treble and the treble are usually around 15 hammers, and I'll do all of those in once. Then I'll scoot it over to the mid, which has like 30 hammers, and I'll kind of split it by 2, if that makes sense. I'll split it in half. but I'll usually get maybe 15 hammers, and I'm just kind of going through it and I'm looking at all of them. And it's kind of like letting your eyes just kind of like go a little bit blurry, but looking at them all and just seeing how they move. And usually I'll start with getting the really bad ones first. I'll see, okay, there's 3 or 4 of them that I can tell that one's going to the left, that one's going to the right. Boom, I'm going to hit those. But as you get more refined, they get harder and harder to tell which ones are moving in which way. Because at some point you're like, wait, are they all moving to the left? And that one's moving to the right? Are they all vice versa? So work on first getting the really bad ones. But Robert, I'll do about 15 of them at a time, or whatever that is. Maybe a foot worth of them, like that. Again, it's harder to do a small section because at the end of the day, you want to see them in line with all the others, and it's a lot easier when you have a whole gang of them like that. The only thing that there's not a lot of damage you can do. This is one of those jobs where usually you're doing more good than harm, even if you're just starting out. Because the reality is, if you kind of go by these guidelines, again, when you're going through and you're checking to make sure that they're burned properly, that they're squared up correctly, a lot of times you're coming to actions and they've moved. Because again, these shanks over time can twist and turn. The humidity can adjust those. And so what I always recommend is start with the outliers, the ones that are really bad. Another thing to consider, in the high treble and in the tenor, you have hammers that are bored straight. In the bass, they're going to be bored kind of to the side. So you really need to change your angle of how you're looking at them as you go. So for instance, the treble is right in line and very straight, and you can look right in line. But as you get to the bass, sometimes you have to kind of do a little bit of moving your head just so that you can see that spacing correctly and
yeah, because you kind of have to follow the rake of the angle of the hammers, right?
Correct.
When they start, the rake of the hammers go this way, you can't look straight. You got to look tilt your head to look at the same angle, right?
That's right. That's exactly it. And again, you're gonna find. Let's make one of these extreme. Because yeah, even these ones, I don't know if you can see, but even these ones are, even though they're bass hammers, they're bored straight. I'm just going to go really extreme with this one. Space it. And this is what I see a lot too, and you can see it really well from the back. It's still hard to see in that angle, but you can see that this hammer.
You can see it more from the tail than you can from up at the felt.
Yeah,
side.
You're right. That is so true. But as you can see, this hammer is tilted to the side, and let's go ahead and again, you see how like right here, you can't really tell. That's why it, from your angle. So now if I move it, no, wrong way. Okay, there we go. Now we can see it. If you don't have that angle, it's like, well, I guess I don't know what I'm looking at. But if you change the angle, look at that space. Boom, it's getting bigger. See that? The space at the top between these two hammers is getting wider. So as the hammer gets higher, you can see now that space is quite a bit larger. There to there. So that hammer, again, needs to go over so that that space is consistently the same. Somebody say it's frozen. Am I frozen?
I think Joel got his system frozen. I think he's jumping back in.
So here we go. Again, let's look at that space. It stays pretty much the same. So that in a nutshell is really how you do the burning and traveling. Think about it in multiple passes, just like we do in regulation work. You're doing a preliminary and more of a final. I will always go first with my burning and just make sure that nothing is so outrageously side to side. Then I will go ahead and do my initial pass of my traveling, going ahead and using a dowel that's roughly 1.5 feet, 16 inches, and going and through section by section, first getting the really bad ones that I can tell are shooting off to the left or to the right and crossing each other over. Then I'll go and do a second or final pass of my burning again, and then my final pass of my traveling. I use the traveling tape that's available at Schaff. If you don't want to go to Schaff, again, I got this little roll, this adorable little roll. It'll probably last a while, just at like Joann's Fabrics, Michael's, or Hobby Lobby. I don't even know what this is called, but just 1/8 inch, tape. It's very thin. And it's, again, one of those jobs that doesn't require a lot of tooling, just requires a lot of patience, as with most piano work. When it comes to Pianocraft, most of what we're doing is just patience. And, that's, and I can't really, as much as I would love to just show you this and make it really easy, the reality is what I'm showing you now has to be taken by you all and just practice. Because there's no amount, even if I had you all right here, I would show you the exact same thing, and you would have to go and practice it over and over and over again.
So, David, I got a photo for you that you can use as an example of hammers that look pretty bad. Let me find the photo here. All right. So this will, if you bring it to more full screen on your screens, you can see what you're talking about as things not being properly, having the, where they need to be burnt to realign, or they're not spaced right, or you can see some of them that because they've been angled for so long that the wear on the head of the hammers are severe.
Wow, look at that one. Right of center.
The one about, the one that's 9 from the right or something like that.
Yeah, that one's really bad. You can see the weird wear on it.
Yeah.
And so, this is where, Michael, having the embossing gun that's a little bit more low profile will really come in handy to get in there and make those. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a great example.
Yeah, so that's on my one that I grew up with at my parents' house. So at some point I get to decide, how much I want to delve into it. I will probably use this as my practice for burning hammers and getting stuff in, and practicing my sanding of the hammers and stuff to remove a lot of the grooves and try to get it back into shape. But this is probably the how far in would you then look at replacing hammers? If you saw stuff like this, you would probably be saying it's probably due for hammer replacement, right?
Usually what I'll do is I'll look at the high treble hammers to see how much mass is on the high treble, because in the bass there's usually quite a bit of mass, but once you get to the high treble, a lot of times they're already splitting right there at the molding, and there's just nothing that you can really do. I always tell the customer that yes, I can surface the hammers, we can kind of do one more pass, but what happens is when you're taking off the layers of felt, the more layers of felt that you remove, the closer to that core, and the more thin and brittle or bright that sound is going to be, because we're removing all that padding. So over time, you just don't have a lot of character from the sound because you've removed all that felt. But yeah, Michael, that looks like those are about on their last legs.
Yeah, and that shows what, you know, a 100-year-old piano. You know, my mom played piano a lot because she played at church every week and she practiced a lot at home. And I don't know how much mom had it serviced. You know, I know that she had it tuned, but I don't know how much, you know, technicians actually did any servicing on it. So
yeah, I would say that when you're all going to customers' houses, all the customers you're going to go to, they'll have had the piano tuned, but it's very rare, almost never, that you'll be like, oh wow, a technician before replaced the bridle straps, they've regulated it, they've surfaced the hammers, they've replaced some bass ampers and stuff like that. Very rare.
Yeah, here's the photo of the high end.
Oh, of the hammers.
Of the hammer. So if you pull that up.
Yeah, let's look at that. Yeah. Your mom played this piano. This is great. So one of the things that I would do though is there's always this, do I surface the hammers first? Do I burn them over first? When it's something this bad, when there's so many hammers that are way off to the side like this, I would go ahead and do my preliminary burning. I would probably do all my burning and traveling first with something like this, and then I would go and do my.
So you do a first pass of the burning and traveling, do a rough resurfacing, then go back through and start.
Yeah, just check over. Exactly. Yeah. No, and it's again, I'm showing you all these, you know, these individual tasks or things to do on an action. But the reality is, once you know how to do them, there's only so many. There's burning, there's hammer surfacing, there's traveling, there's repinning. But the reality is, once you have each one of these, it's like, okay, I have it. I know it. I can, you know, go back over my notes. It's not like there becomes new issues. That's kind of one of the beautiful things about Pianocraft is once you learn it, it's not really changing. It's different scenarios, but you're using the same procedures, you're using the same skills, but you're just using it on the different pianos in the different situations. As Victor, you know, he's out in the field all the time, and it's you know how to tune a piano, you're going to tune a spinet, you're going to tune a grand, it's the same principles, and you're just honing it in every day. So I really don't want to discourage you all from when I'm showing you these tasks to be like, oh gosh, another one, and I don't know how to do that. Now is another thing I have to learn. Once you learn it, it's just, it gets so much more fun and empowering, because the reality is I just showed you something here. Most technicians have no idea how to do that. They don't. They will not know how to do that. They won't even feel comfortable to attempt it, even if they did have an idea. And so that's the goal behind what we're trying to do here is now you have an idea of how to do it, and it'll be cataloged in the library. And if you ever want to go back again, you can do that or ask us questions because we want all of you to get to the point where you're doing this, that you are actively making pianos better, doing the burning and traveling. You are making the world better by making pianos better, therefore making it so that people can create more music and better music. Because the reality is, if somebody has hammers that are touching each other and they're rubbing a little bit, that might be making it so that that player can't play, can't progress, can't make the music they want to, that would benefit the entire world. I know I'm on my soapbox here, but I just think it's a big deal that we learn how to do all this stuff and we give that back to the players. The pianos deserve this work. I'm done. All right, I'm done. I'll take a drink.
I have a question, David. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. This is about more upright hammers. I just replaced some hammers on the upright, but the last three notes, there was really I couldn't hear the pitch very well. Just, it was basically just the sound of the hammer hitting the V bar. Yeah. But what I did was I just burned it and bent the head down. Is that kind of what you would do, or would you try to take it off and,
I would do three things. three things. Usually the high treble hammers in an upright are a lot smaller and sleeker than the new replacement hammers. Have you noticed that? That the new replacement hammers that you get from Auble, the high treble, are quite a bit more massive than the original ones you took off. So what I will do is for the top 3 to 5 hammers is I will actually surface them down, shape them down to where they're that size or closer to that size. Again, I'm not taking off really a lot of any of the mass right here in the center. I'm whittling down the sides.
So you're narrowing the shoulders down.
Narrowing the shoulders down, exactly. From there, what I'm doing is usually, because I want some tone, is I'm going to add some acetone and lacquer to those top 3 to 5 hammers. I'll probably do a 4 to 1. 4 parts acetone, 1 part lacquer. And that is going to make that hammer a little bit more stiff and harder. Then, Victor, I'll push what Victor was saying is he heats up this glue joint and a little bit and pushes this hammer downwards a little bit underneath that V-bar so it's hitting a different part of that speaking length. So yes, but I won't do one of those. I usually do all 3, and it's only in the top 3 to 5 hammers.
Yeah, it was those top 3, but I was able to get a pretty good tone. But yeah, I guess those hammers are so mellow, they're pretty warm. Yeah, the tone still wasn't what I liked, but I didn't think about juicing those last 3. That's a good idea.
Yeah, juicing the last 3. We just got to where we were doing it on every one when we were doing a lot of rebuilding work because it's just like, and you can tell your customer saying, hey, over time, these hammers are going to harden up as you play it in. And they're usually pretty okay with it. That's a good question, though.
Well, if it's the upper notes, the customer may not even care because they're hardly ever playing those notes in the first place.
It's true, but I found
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's true, Mike. But I have found that a lot of times when people are like, man, I'm spending $3 to $4 grand to get all new hammers and regulations and work done on my upright, I wanted those top notes to do something else. So I have noticed that as well, depending on the customer.
Yeah, the customer was pretty happy because those last 3 hammers were missing. Well,
they were actually missing.
Somebody just the felt was already down to the core, so they just got like red felt and just wrapped the hammer in it. So it was pretty much useless.
It's funny what we come across as technicians. It's just like, wait, what? What is going on here?
That would be a good class in the future is when you show up, because sometimes you'll show up at a customer's home and the hammer is it's just not there. Like, how do you, that would be, everyone's going to run into that one day. So.
Well, it's like on my Thompson, when I, found my broken string on the Thompson, there was 3 strings over, somebody had done a replacement and it only had not even hardly a full coil on it, on the tuning pin. I'm like, well, that's pretty bad.
You all are going to run across, you have to, this is an entirely unregulated field. It's crazy what people can get away with, but you all are going to go into customers' houses and just be pretty amazed at like, wow, your last tech did this. Just so you all can see, this is kind of an example. This one is kind of how these brand new hammers in the high treble come. Like hammer 88 will look like that. And what we do is we whittle down those shoulders. And again, I'm not taking any mass off the strike point. I'm keeping that. I'm just taking it off the sides so that we're narrowing that hammer so that it can really fit underneath that V-bar. Just so you know, there's a rule of thumb, or there's mathematics to it. So when I say speaking length, just so that everybody knows, in a string, you have it where it touches the hitch pin and goes all the way down, and then there's the termination bar. So from that point to this point, that entire loose string, that's called the speaking length. And so that's that entire mass of string right there that's uninhibited. So the reality is the strike point needs to be at 1/7. So if this is divided by sevens, that hammer needs to hit at 1/7 of that speaking length. And it doesn't necessarily have to be at the first seventh, it has to be in a ratio of 7. So it can be a little bit off. How do I say it? In the bass, you have a long bass string, right? And so the reality is, if I were to divide this into 7s right here, that's a pretty good, there's quite a bit of distance between each of one of those 7s. Now imagine it's a treble string that's only this size. You don't have a lot of margin. And that's what Victor is talking about. And so when sometimes with this upright piano, again, if this is the vertical upright piano, this is the speaking length, you only have a little bit of margin, usually a millimeter. And if you, to figure out where that proper strike point is. And so what Victor was talking about is moving the hammer up or down to get it to hit at that exact spot. And so just know, yeah.
Do you consider the speaking, so you said down to the hitch pin, but wouldn't it be the bridge and not the hitch pin?
You're right. I should have said that it was really whatever the termination points are. So you're right.
Right. So it would be an A graph or a V bar, and then the bridge would be your speaking length.
Yeah, the speaking length. Yeah, that's right. It's wherever those 2 termination points are. It's that space in the middle.
Yeah, I bent it down just. Yeah, I bent it down just a little bit. But yeah, I was pretty surprised because I was like, man, I don't think I bent it down far enough. But I mean, it was just the slightest amount really brought out the fundamental.
Yes, and so just as Victor was able to move that hammer down and get the right hit it at the right spot, in a grand piano, you're going to move that high treble section in or out as well. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'm like, man, I'm not getting a good tone here in the upper treble. So what I'll do is I'll remove the cheek block on that right hand side and move the action in and out a little bit and tap, 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 and see where I get the best tone. And wherever that lands, and it might be in a different spot where that cheek block wants to set it, I'll manipulate the little metal mechanism on the cheek block so that it lands in the right spot, so that has the right amount of tone. So that's another thing that we as technicians need to learn how to do and be able to do, because it makes a big deal. It's a big difference.
I have a 88 key here from a new set. It's pretty fat. A lot of meat on the sides there.
There's a lot.
This would be like 94. I guess you would try to get it something closer to that. They kind of
look the same. I would actually. Yeah, it's a lot more. If you look at those original high treble hammers, there's very little on there on the sides, on the shoulders.
Who was it that posted a picture where they just stuck a metal thumbtack on the end of the hammer? Give it a little more ping.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that.
Yeah, we had a customer do that. It was interesting.
I've also seen, and I've actually done this before because the customer didn't want to pay for new hammers. The high treble hammers, like the top 5, were so worn that the felt there was split. So that felt right here was so thin right at the molding that there was no mass left, and it was split right there. And so what we actually did is glued on and draped over that molding buckskin, like leather, and glued it down, clamped it. So we kind of made our own little hammer, put a little bit of a lacquer in it and shaped it. And just because they were like, what can you do? What can you do? And you're going to find there's a lot of times the customer's like, just do whatever you can do in the hour that you have. And we're, okay, I have some CA glue. I have some buckskin. Let's make this happen. And I have some sanding paddles. You have to be willing to give up the right thing sometimes. The right thing would be, yes, let's put new hammers on it. But that's the right for you. The right thing for them is not necessarily spending $3,000 on that. They just want it fixed so that they can hear a little bit of a sound. And so just being willing to do that, a lot of technicians are not willing to do that. And I think that that's a shame, because you're not meeting your customer where they're at. And so if you're well-rounded as a technician, you can do these types of repairs very quickly, very efficiently, and it makes a big difference. And yeah, a couple of years from now, they'll usually call you back and like, hey, I'm ready to do that hammer job. Thank you so much. That helped me out for a couple of years. So.
Yeah, I have another question on. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something? Stephanie,
No.
Go ahead.
Oh,
go
ahead. I'll ask after you. No big deal.
Thanks. No, I just question kind of what you're talking about, David. We've been doing a lot of this reconditioning work, but yeah, some of these are really bad, and the customers, they're kind of shocked at how much it's going to be to get things done. And so, what are some things that you might leave out, like in a full action reconditioning, that can wait? I kind of told them like maybe we could wait on the key bushings. Is that something you would kind of wait on, or I don't know, on the action?
I'd wait on new key tops. I wait on key bushings. I'd surface the hammers if they didn't have the money for the new hammers, and do whatever I could there. Usually above reconditioning, I'll repin. So if there's like, hey, this needs repinning and reconditioning and regulation, I'll say, hey, regulation and the reconditioning can wait. We need to get these action parts moving freely. And that already is a big deal. So yeah. You're on the right track, Victor, with what you're suggesting. It's finding whatever you can. It's like, we can try to not do that, but just explain to the customer what they're going to lose and show them the stuff that they'll lose the least amount. And what you could do, Victor, in the meantime is say, hey, I'm not going to replace the key bushings, but I'm going to pivot them over. I'm going to pivot the front rail. I know that's cardinal sin. It's not a long-term fix, but if you pivot those front rail pins over just slightly, you can take up that space, and it gives you a little bit more time. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a question about like practicing. So I've been looking into, trying to figure out how to get more hands-on with some of this. And I was thinking about just getting, like picking up a free piano off like Marketplace, and just like fiddling around. I don't know if I think I'm echoing. You guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So you're saying like if you go on Amazon Marketplace or not Amazon, Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist and get a free or very inexpensive piano to practice on.
Yeah. Is that,
that's what we have all done.
Okay. I was just saying, is there like a better thing to do? Like, is that a waste of time, or is that something in the right path?
That's a huge thing to do.
Okay.
And so what you want to do is
just don't get a spinet. Make sure it's like an actual upright.
Yeah, console or full upright, one of the two.
Yeah. So when you're looking at them, you're going to want something that's and feel free to even message the group if you find something like, hey, this is a free piano.
We can vet it for you.
And we can be like, hey, yeah, definitely. But that's what we've all had to do is like mess with pianos that we can mess with and break and feel okay about. And but you're gonna learn so much on your first piano, and highly recommend it. And we're going to get into, especially as I get back into Portland, a lot of that core fundamentals. Here's how you're going to practice piano tuning just with a mute and a tuning hammer. And you're going to spend days practicing with just those two little tools, no other machines. And we're going to spend time learning how to do that and hone it in. So, but yeah, having your own piano that you can feel okay to abuse, but not, you're just going to accidentally abuse a piano as you're learning how to work on it.
Okay. I will definitely do that. Thank you.
When I picked up pianos, one thing that I had to, kind of evaluate was, was it too old and too rough versus, it's old, it's old, but it's not too far gone and makes it, easier to pick, because I've been looking at some other ones to get a third piano to mess around with, but, either one, it hadn't been maintained at all in many, many years, or two, even, it's too far away. It looks like a good one, but it's too far away. I don't want to try to get it up to my place and stuff like that.
And that might be worth doing is we do a live or maybe a checklist on saying, hey, to go find your free piano that you want to practice on, here's the top 10 things to look for. It not be a spinet, Make sure that it doesn't have cracks over here in these bass bridges. Make sure that there's not a lot of broken strings already. Make sure that you can kind of go chromatically down the scale and it's going dee 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 properly instead of dee 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 do 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 to where there's obviously something wrong there. So the little things like that. And again, that's part of the beauty of this group is if people have questions like, hey, I found this. Is this worth getting? People have thoughts because everybody's been there. So.
And you might be able to sell it in the end. Comes out pretty good.
Yes.
Exactly.
Unless I
Well,
break it so
that's
much.
why I'm trying to get the leg repaired on my Samick because I'm expecting to flip that one as soon as I get that leg repaired.
That thing's gonna fly off the shelf, Michael. When you're done with that, oh my goodness.
Robert, you have your first finished one to sell, right?
Yeah, it's still on Facebook Marketplace and Facebook,
Awesome.
and as well as our Nextdoor app. So no, one guy tried to scam using a Cash App. You know, hey, I want to buy it full price. I said okay, but then he started asking too much personal info. So let me call you tomorrow, and it was one of those Google numbers that people can buy, and because he could text with it, and it was out of Dallas. So I thought, well, okay, we'll see.
Or
But
just ask him to call you on your phone, and you'll get rid of all those releases.
Right.
Just have them
Yeah.
call you. Mm-hmm.
Joel's biting the. He's doing it. He's going for the spin it tomorrow. Take a picture of the spin it when you get it to your house.
I need to have at least 6 pianos at my house.
Yes, you do. There's Stacy over there.
Yeah, that's how many I have. You're gonna beat me soon.
So on Friday, we're going to be talking about what is your message? What is the message? What is your branding? And how do you promote what you want to promote? And how sometimes we accidentally promote the thing we don't want to promote. And so we're going to be talking about that on Friday. And it's more going to be business, and presenting. That's the thing, is presenting everything. Because the reality is, unless you're intentional with the message that you want to promote, you will inevitably accidentally promote a different message. And I've learned that the hard way. Yes.
Can I say I just finished my website, so I'd like to post a link here in the feed, and you're not going to hurt my feelings. I didn't do it. I was limited by some of the GoDaddy's limitations on wording and templates, etc. But they got up there what I wanted to put out. And if something looks vaguely familiar wording from your website, it's because I stole it. So,
good job, Robert.
Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery.
Yeah, I try to keep it simple because I tend to overanalyze and ask too many questions and overthink it. But just wanted to basically tuning and cleaning. But I'll put it on the feed here in a little bit.
Yeah, put it on the general feed as well as everybody else's. Like, here's my website, and stuff like
actually
that.
Put it underneath the business Q&A maybe, because that's kind of where we're.
That's a great idea. Yeah, business Q&A.
Okay.
David already promised not to sue us, so.
I did, but I want the term piano technology to somehow just drift away into the nothing, into the emptiness. Pianocraft. That is the heart and soul of what we're doing. That is the beauty of what we're doing. And so if everybody starts using that word, I don't care. That just makes me happy. We'll know. It started here in this group. So I will see your websites. Please post them. I love seeing it all. So Friday, we'll talk about your messaging. We'll talk about websites. Yes, Justin, let's post all the websites again. And we'll just have a fun free-for-all and just ask, hey, what was the message that you wanted to promote? What is your message? Hey, I want to promote the fact that I'm a really goofy, fun-loving piano tech. Cool, you definitely did that. Hey, I want to promote the fact that I'm really stuck up and I don't want worthless pianos to work on. Good job, you did that. It's just have fun with it. I will see you on Friday morning, coffee, and we'll talk about messaging.